here. And let's do number 1. Can you read that?
Okay.
Is that big enough, Haley? Because I can expand it a little bit.
Yeah, I can read it. That's fine.
So what's first step?
You have to multiply the negative 4 into the parentheses.
Yes. What I call the first step is getting rid of the parentheses. And you get rid of parentheses by distributing. Okay. So you tell me what to write.
Okay. So then it would be 3x minus 4x plus 8 plus 6x minus 8.
Now what?
So now you just have to combine like terms. So it would be 5x, and then the 8's cancel out, so it'd just be 5x equals 0.
Okay.
So then x equals 0.
You got it. Okay. How about number 2? So it started at 325. What are you going to do to that?
I'm going to multiply it by 0.8.
Good. Go ahead. You have your calculator in front of you?
Yeah, so then it would be 260.
Exactly.
And multiply it by 0.9.
Good.
So then 234.
Okay. And the only tricky part of this was the additional 10% was from this price, not this price.
Yeah.
So it was important that you multiplied that second price by 0.9.
Okay.
I think we have to go to a different page here. So we're looking for problem number 3. It's going to be a bit cumbersome until I figure out. We don't, I suppose, have to do these in order. That was the, let's do them out of order. It won't matter.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to waste a whole lot of time getting them in order. So it doesn't matter if we skip around as long as we know what we looked at already. First of all, what does it mean? X and Y are directly proportional. Can you give me an equation
For the problem?
that states this? Only that.
So x equals y.
There's a K in there. X equals K times Y.
Okay.
Okay? And the reason is because K can be any number. We have to figure out what K is. This is the general equation that says X is directly proportional to Y. They give you an X and a Y. What's that going to allow us to calculate?
What k equals?
Okay, so X is 3. K times 8. So K equals 3/8. Now you have the real equation. X equals 3/8 Y. There is the specific equation for this problem. Now, figure out what X is when Y is 13.
So 4.875.
Yeah, notice is all you need is that first digit. Didn't even need your calculator. 39 divided by 8 is going to be 4 and change. There's only one answer even close to that. And that is very, very frequently the case on ACT, is that you think you need a calculator, but in reality end up not. As long as you have good math skills, you could get by without a calculator on this test. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use it to speed things up. If you can use it to speed things up, then do so. Okay. So which of these values is the smallest? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm guessing it's 8 divided by 60. No. I'm just
That's
trying
not a bad guess. But would you bet your life on it at this point?
No.
Okay. So let's figure out what each of these decimals are. Once we turn every fraction into a decimal, it'll be a piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
What's 2/11ths?
0.181 or 0.18.
What's 3/16ths?
0.19.
What's 8/60ths?
0.13.
And what's 5/26ths?
0.19.
Well, your instincts were pretty good. So maybe you didn't need to do that, but I would not have felt safe without checking each one. I don't have that much confidence in being able to turn a fraction into a decimal. At least not, you'll notice that 3 of these, you'd have to almost go back and make sure you rounded it off correctly to see which one was truly the smallest. But luckily they gave you one that was a lot smaller than any of the others. Okay. Let's try this third page. May not have taken enough pictures. I didn't realize there was only 3 questions per page here. I mean, I guess I did. I still thought, I think I've got 16 questions. I may have to take some more and move it up during the session. It doesn't take long. I've got the book right behind me. We'll see how it goes. So number 6, 2 numbers are added together are 19. Their product is 70. What are the 2 numbers? What's the best way to do this problem?
Just try out all the options.
Exactly. In other words, rather than coming up with variables and the equations, the simultaneous equations, let's just see if it works. Well, that one, the easiest thing to do is to cross off the answers that definitely do not work. Product of 4 and 15 is not 70, nor is 3 and 16. So now we got 3 choices.
G doesn't work because that doesn't equal 19.
Yeah.
Either. And then K, so it has to be F.
F, pretty easy. In fact, had you just gone about it normally, just started trying them, you would have found F worked immediately. And that's important. There are never more than one correct answer on problems like this. So once you find the answer that works, those 2 numbers multiply to 70 and add to 19, you're done. Answer it, go on to the next. Do not waste time checking any of the others. Okay. What's absolute value mean? What's absolute value minus? That's what these signs mean.
Like it's like the positive number. Like that would just be 3.
Okay.
And then 3 plus 2.5.
Okay.
So then 5.5, yeah.
Yeah. Problems might be too easy for you. No, I maybe should have. And we got 16 of them to look at. We'll see whether they get harder or not. So what's the best thing to do here as a start? It's a triangle, right?
So draw it.
Draw a triangle. Okay. It doesn't really have to be to scale. Just draw a triangle. They say AB is congruent to BC. Well, that looks a lot like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's congruent to that. So far we have an isosceles triangle. And AC is 1.5 times the length of AB. So I really didn't draw it. I don't really need to redraw it, but it's more like this. That's still an isosceles triangle, but this side down here, if that's x, and that's x, then this is 1.5x. Okay, and that's so far what I know. And that's all I know. Now they're talking not about the triangles anymore, but angles. What do we know about the angles here? Do we know anything about them?
They have to add up to 180.
Okay, but what do we know based on the fact that it's an isosceles triangle? Here, since I've drawn this to scale, let's not confuse the issue with variables. There, that's our picture. Okay. Now, isosceles triangles not only have two equal sides, but what else? The angles opposite those sides are also equal. So angle A is equal to angle C. Which is the biggest angle in the triangle?
B.
Yeah, clearly. And the reason is because the biggest angle of any triangle has to be opposite the biggest side. And the smallest angle of any triangle has to be opposite the smallest side. Okay? So let's just examine each of these. They insist upon calling them by their three-letter designations. That's fine. Is BCA, you can just look at the middle letter, actually. Is C greater than A?
No.
Is C greater than B?
No.
Is B greater than C?
Yes.
We're done. On to the next problem. There's three statistics things you have to know. You have to know what mean, median, and mode mean. What does mean mean? What is the meaning of mean?
Isn't it the largest number?
The average. It's the average. Think of mean as the same as average. And half your problems are going to use the word average, half of them are going to use the word mean. They mean the same thing. What does the median mean? MEDIN. If you're driving, do you drive?
Yes.
Where's the median?
In the middle of the road.
That's what it means, is middle. And the last one is mode. Most common. In other words, in this one, doesn't look like that. We got two 70s. And that's the only one. That's the most common score, 70. But they're not asking for that. They're asking for the mean. How do you get the mean?
You add up all the numbers and then divide it by the amount of numbers you have. So
well, you add up all the numbers and you divide it by the number of numbers you have. There are 10 numbers there. 10 students.
So it would be 65.
Okay. You've already done that in your calculator?
Yeah.
Okay. You hope all the problems are that easy.
Will they be around like this, like kind of level for most of
Will they
them?
do what?
Will they like be like this on the test? Problems like this?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Barron's practice test booklet.
Okay.
These are actual practice tests. We are starting towards the beginning, so we're getting the easier questions. You know that ACT goes from beginning, medium, and hard. And the
Yeah.
strategy you want to use to take the test is just go ahead and start at the beginning and go through the entire test one time and do all the problems you can do. That's the way to find the easiest problems. Just do everything you can do. You find a problem you don't know how to do, put a little check mark by it.
Okay.
If you find a problem you think you know how to do, put a little check mark by it. If you find a problem you think you don't know how to do, maybe put a double check mark by it.
Okay.
But the
So are
first
there
time through the test, you're going to do everything you can do. Then you're going to go a second pass through the test, and then you're going to do everything you think you can do. And finally, that'll leave a third pass where you're dealing with nothing but the harder problems. And at that point, you're probably going to be close to out of time. If you have time, you can still keep working on the problems. But absolutely, by the end of the test, make sure everything has an answer.
so are there about like 60 problems on the math?
60 problems, 60 minutes, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
1
And
minute.
how many of those do you think are like the hard ones?
I would say 20, 20, and 20.
2020. Okay.
20 easy, 20 medium, and 20 hard. Maybe not 20 hard, maybe only 10 hard, 20, 20 easy, 30 medium, and 10 hard. Let's say that. That would be a good guess. But it
Okay.
doesn't really matter. What matters is that you do all of them you can do. If you can't do a problem, you're going to end up guessing on some of them. No doubt.
Yeah.
Because one thing to definitely be aware of in the test, okay, is you have 1 minute per problem. But if you go through the test the first time, and let's say you answer 30 questions in 30 minutes, are you on pace?
I would say no.
Probably not, because you've answered the easiest 30 questions. You should be ahead of pace. In other words, easy questions should not take a full minute. You should probably average 30 seconds on an easy question so that you'll have a minute and a half on the harder questions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're not going to take a minute per question just because it gives you a minute. You're going to do it as fast as you can. So the first time through, when you do the ones you know how to do, you shouldn't be taking a minute per problem there. You should maybe have 30 questions answered in 20 minutes or 25 minutes at worst, the first time through, because you're only doing the easy ones then.
Okay.
All right, let's look at number 4. Very clever, number 4.
Does it work just to try all of the answers and see which one gives me an average? They do too.
No, it isn't, because their relative weighting is different. In other words,
Oh,
if you had equal weighted scores, then that would be fine. But as you know, as a student knows, that your tests are not all equal weighted. Your final is always heavier weighted. Okay.
so Would I have to multiply
There you go.
like
Point.
the 30% by the 90 and
Let's
then
see
get
what
those answers?
happens if we do that. It's a little tricky. I haven't seen a problem like this. This definitely a medium one. So do this multiplication. Give me a number.
So 12.9.
Okay, let's put it out here. 12.9. Do the same thing for those two.
So 10.5.
Again.
And then 27.
Now, we need a score that when multiplied by 0.4, we don't know what the score is. I'm going to call it Z. Okay? But we're going to multiply it by 0.4, and we're going to get a number, 0.4Z. And we're going to write that right there. And now the key is to figure out what Z has to be such that we get an 82. Well, what do those first three numbers add up to?
50.4.
50.4. We got to get to 82. So we need a final of 31.6. Okay. But we need 0.4 times some final test score to be equal to 31.6. So Z is going to be 31.6 divided by 0.4. What is that?
79.
That's always comforting when you've done a process that you're not 100% sure is correct, but you come up with an answer that's on there. And let's see if we can kind of ballpark it. We were above our average after 1. After 2, we're probably below the 82 average, definitely. Then we get a 90 on a heavily weighted score, so we're up above the 82 average. 79 sounds about right. We can get a score less than our current average through those three scores that's less than 82, and we'll still have at least an 82% B average for the class. The secret, that's a little difficult. Like I said, I've not seen a problem like this before. I'm trying to think if there's an easier way to do it. Don't really think there is. No, you have to take the relative weight times the score, for sure. So this step is an absolute must. And what you end up doing with those numbers, just what we did with them. I really don't see an easier way to do it. Maybe. Back solving might actually be a little easier. I won't do the whole thing, but notice that this definitely lends itself to back solving, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, and the reason it does is, first of all, you always start the second lowest and the second highest. What they taught you at that ACT seminar was not correct. You do not start in the middle.
Okay.
I haven't broke it to the head of Sycamore Learning Company yet, but I'm 100% sure of that. You
Okay.
start with the low and you start with the high. Well, if you start with 74%, we're going to give ourselves a 74. Now we'll be able to easily figure out what our average is, right? We'll do it exactly the same way, 0.15 times 86, so forth and so on. And we're going to end up with a lower average. Let's say we end up with 80%. What does that tell us?
That you need to go up one.
You need to go higher. You're not sure you need to go up 1, but you need to go higher. The next best number to try is J, because when you try J, you will have the answer regardless. For one thing, you've eliminated F, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know you have to go bigger. But if we did 79 and we still had to go bigger, I would have to do another calculation. Whereas if I do 82, and I see that that gives us an average of 84%, well, now I know 82 is too big, 74 is too small. There's your answer, and I only had to do 2 calculations. So back solving is almost always guaranteed so that you only have to do 2 calculations. That's it.
Okay.
As opposed to the way we did this problem, whereas we did all 4 calculations and then a 5th one. So I think back solving is definitely the easier way. But it does not eliminate this need to multiply those 2 numbers, those 2 numbers, those 2 numbers, and those 2 numbers. You have to do that regardless of whether you're back solving or doing it algebraically. But it definitely looks like back solving was quicker. All right, the geometry problem. You like geometry or not?
No. I
Well,
like algebra.
you'll be happy to hear that on the SAT, there's a lot less geometry.
On the SAT?
You're taking the ACT, but the ACT is about equal. ACT has about equal geometry to algebra, whereas the SAT has about 80 to 20 more algebra. But also that means more word problems. And I'm guessing you don't like word problems either. Nobody does. So, all right, let's proceed with number 5. Don't be fooled by all this stuff here. Whoops, hold on a second. I forgot to. In other words, they're really just trying to confuse you. They are. Collinear means they are in a straight line. That's what it means. That's it. Okay?
Okay.
So that whole first sentence just means you're looking at a bunch of straight lines. They put in 4 sentences to tell you you had straight lines. Okay, and then they say, here's key information. AB is parallel to CD. Immediately we have 2 parallel lines and a transversal. And they always make it slightly more confusing. They don't give us just 1 transversal, they give us 2. In other words, that's a transversal. FH is a transversal, and so is FG. But that's okay. We're going to be able to deal with that. First of all, and the triangle is isosceles. Now we're in like Flint. What's this angle right here?
It's equal to G. Oh, you're asking. Oh, it's 45.
Right. In other words, first thing, it's 45. Now, G is also 45 because it's isosceles, which makes this angle up here 90. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing to do in a geometry problem like this is probably to label the stuff you... They're never going to ask you a geometry problem that's a one-step problem. It's always going to be where you have to find a second angle or an original angle first, and then a second angle, and then finally you'll get the third angle. Okay? I still haven't read the problem yet. If angle CEH is 45, what's the measure of BFG? Notice BFG is that angle right there. I didn't even need to do any of this geometry. I knew that angle from one piece of information and one only. I don't even need Not so. You do need to know that it's an isosceles triangle, because that makes that 45, that makes that 45. But once I figured out that's 45, what's that?
45.
Has to be, because of the parallel lines and the transversal. Okay? So as soon as I got to this step, I'm kind of done. I don't really need to go up and figure out that that's a 90-degree angle. That's just extra information that I don't really need. Okay? Still there? I heard a beep. Sometimes that means I lost audio.
Oh, I think I'm still here.
Okay, good. Can't always tell. I think actually we can go ahead and do, we did 6, 7, and 8 already. Okay. Let's see. I think we're down to this last one here. What's 1/3 of 210?
Um, 70.
Okay. Number 11. Similar trapezoids. You know, another thing that I don't practice myself, but I really think it's key when you see a problem is to underline the key statements. The key statements being they're similar. If you don't happen to pick that up the first time you read it, you may not notice it. So we're going to underline that. And that means they have identical internal angle measurements. In other words, that angle is equal to that angle. All four angles are equal to one another, not to each other, but to the corresponding trapezoid. They want to know what the area of the smaller trapezoid, assuming that the larger trapezoid has an area of 20. So the area of the large one is 20, and a top base of 6 units, and the smaller trapezoid has a top base of 3 units. So, what's the similarity ratio?
2.
Correct. Similarity ratio, also called the linear ratio, is 2 to 1, big to small. Now, what is the area ratio? If the linear ratio is 2 to 1.
I don't know.
It's 4 to 1. In other words, it's the square of the linear ratio. So the area ratio would be 4 to 1. The volume ratio would be the cube of the linear ratio.
Oh.
Remember that part of algebra? Okay. Well, we have a linear ratio of 6 to 3, or 2 to 1. So the area ratio is, this area has got to be 4 times this area. So what's the area of the smaller one?
5.
Yeah. And that's really, without a doubt, the easiest, quickest way to do that problem. I mean, you could go through all kinds of math and drawing triangles and trying to make measurements to try to figure out what this height is and what that base is. I could waste 5 minutes on this problem. But the really key thing is understanding that, the same thing applies to a circle. Any similar figures. If the radius of that circle is 2, and the radius of this circle is 6, what's the linear ratio? That is a linear measurement. What's the linear ratio? Big to little.
3.
What's the area ratio? Big to little.
9.
And what's the volume ratio? Big to little.
27.
Yeah, in other words, if this was a sphere, in other words, the area of that circle is going to be 9 times the area of that circle. And if I had a sphere, the volume of that sphere is going to be 27 times the volume of that little sphere. So when you go from linear to area, you square it. When you go from linear to volume, you cube it. Makes a lot of sense. This is 1 dimension, this is 2 dimensions, and this is 3 dimensions. Apologize for how bad the writing is. The ink isn't very dark.
It's okay.
It's dark over here on the right side. Must have to do with the way I had the camera pointed and the light that I had shining on it. Okay, you can still read that?
Yeah.
Never be intimidated by the size of the question. If anything, the more words there are, the more sentences there are, the easier the problem is. The tough problems are the short ones. And yet, I notice a lot of people, in other words, it would be very tempting, the first pass through, to look at this and you see 7 sentences, I'm going to do that later. Don't do that. This is a really easy problem. So if every book is $8, how many do you have to purchase before you spend up your $100 bill?
Like 12. 12.5.
So how many books do you have to purchase? Excuse me, that's not a dollar sign. It's actually $8
13.
to $100. So the dollar sign disappears.
It'd be 13.
Correct. If you only purchased $12, you would only spend $96. You would not qualify for a bonus. Whereas if you bought $13, you'll spend slightly more. You'll spend $104, and then you'll get the bonus. Okay. That's a pretty common type problem also, in that they give you something that you can't give as a fractional answer. It has to be a whole number. Let's see if we can, whoops, let's see if I can move some of these problems. Yeah, good. We need those. Nah, we've done those already. All right, let's see. It'll take me 2 minutes to take another picture. Let me do it real quick.
Okay.
My hand wasn't shaking too badly there. Trying to hold it so I didn't block the light. But in an attempt to hold it like that, I couldn't hold it steady.
Yeah.
Let's see how long it takes this one to come in. Wow. Huh. Heck, maybe I didn't send it properly. Just one moment. Let me go back and send it better. Yeah. I guess I got to do it through my gallery. I can't just share that picture. I didn't realize that. Okay. It's on its way. Maybe. Why am I getting these drafts? This is pretty bizarre. I've had this happen with students before.
Oh, really?
A lot of times. They'll send the picture, they'll say it's sent, it won't get there, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, they've done something wrong. They've done something wrong.
Yeah.
But sometimes the internet just is slow. I'll try to send it one more time. Put a subject in it this time. Sending message doesn't fully ever say sent. And what I tell all my students is until it says sent, I'm not getting it. It's got to say sent. This is really acting bizarre. Well, let me solve that problem later. For some reason, it's making 3 drafts, but it's not sending the file at all. I've got plenty of tests in here I can bring up that are already in here. McGraw-Hill has some pretty good ones. Let's start with test. Let's go in the middle. Give us a little bit of practice with some harder problems here. There we go. How about this one? I've got about 8 ACT tests in my computer, but I figured the best ones to use would be the one that is in that book that the Sycamore Learning gave you when you took the seminar. So I was using those, but these are just as good.
Okay.
Now, again here, that information we don't need to underline because that's in the drawing. But what isn't in the drawing is that point. So let's label that point. Which of the followings are the coordinates for point O? Well, let's see if we can look at the picture. What was this again? This was -1, -4. Now, this is actually one that you can almost do by just looking at the picture, right? Is that the right answer? Is A?
No. Yeah, none of the ones with negatives in it.
It's got to be 2 positive numbers, right?
Yeah.
So it's not A,
There's
it's not B. 9 and 3 could make sense. this can't. It's got to be two positive numbers. And 11 and 2 could make sense. So, you familiar with the midpoint formula?
I think so.
This point right here is halfway between M and O. How much did I have to add to -1 to get to 5?
6.
So O has to be another 6 to the right. So at a minimum, its x coordinate is 11. That gives us the answer. We're done, on to the next problem. But I don't want to overlook the subject. In other words, they may have given you two answers that had 11 on there. So how far up do I have to go from -4 to get to -1?
3.
So I go another 3 units above -1, and I get to 2. In other words, midpoint is really easy. Just separate it into the x coordinates and then the y coordinates. And the midpoint has to be halfway in between those x coordinates and halfway in between the y coordinates. Well, this is actually kind of complicated, but then it's kind of simple. If you don't know what to do on a problem like this, you don't know where to begin. Start with the information. His friend pledges 9 cents for the first 25 miles he runs. So do that in your calculator. What's 0.09 times 25 miles?
2.25.
$2.25. Notice that's one of the trap answers. But that's for the first 25 miles. If we read on, his goal is to run 63 miles. Well, what's 63 minus 25?
38.
Okay. And his friend, so if he runs exactly 63 miles, the first 25 you'll be paid 9 cents per mile. The next 38 is going to be only 7 cents per mile. What's 7 cents times 38?
2.66.
2.66?
Yeah.
So if he collects 491, that's exactly what he will be owed if he runs exactly 63 miles. Assuming he meets but does not exceed his goal. He's going to run exactly 63 miles, not a foot longer. So it actually turns out to be a rather simple computation. It's 9 cents for the first 25 miles, 7 cents for the next 38 miles. You get that answer. But they do give you the trap answer on there. If you start too soon, in other words, the moment you came up with 225, I'm sure out of the corner of your eye you saw that 225 down there. So it's tempting to pick that. But you have to make sure you read the whole problem. Okay. 19. Now, it says, which of the following must be true? And that means there can only be one answer. Once you find it, then you're done. In other words, there's never going to be two answers here.
Is it E?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I haven't gone through my process yet. Let's make up some numbers to satisfy that condition. Well, I could do a lot of things. I could have -2, that's greater than -1, the absolute value of -1, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's 2 and that's 1. 2 is greater than 1. However, x is less than y. -2 is a smaller number than -1. So, first of all, x doesn't have to be greater than 0. The example I just put up there, x was not greater than 0. It was less than 0. Furthermore, x is less than y in this particular example, but if I put this example up, x is greater than y. So that can't be right and that can't be right because I can do both. This can't be right because that says greater than. It doesn't say greater than or equal to. So this is the only thing left. X has to be a different number than y. Notice that no matter what I choose, if I choose the same number, -13, that is not a true statement. So my numbers have to be different. That's the only way that can be a true statement, is if x is different than y, which means x is not equal to y. Okay, definitely are into a few more difficult. I wouldn't call these the hard problems. I'd call these the medium problems. When is a ratio undefined? That is a ratio. It's a fraction.
Mm-hmm.
When is it undefined? What is the one thing in math you can never do? That has a numerator and a denominator. That's what makes it a quotient.
Mm-hmm.
You could go online and pull up 10 different lists on the 10 commandments of mathematics, and every list is going to have 1 at the top. What can you not do? You cannot ever divide by 0.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what value of x makes that it's not 0? If x was 0, you'd be dividing by 100. So what cannot be 0 is this. That is what can never be 0. Well, if I solve that equation, I get 100 is not equal to 4x squared. I get x squared is not equal to 25. X cannot be 5. Now, it also can't be -5. But they're never going to put both answers on there. In other words, if x were -5, I would still have a denominator of 0. But when x is 5, I have a denominator of 0. That's what makes it undefined. All right, let's do a couple more here. What's the slope-intercept form of 21?
Y equals -3 minus 8. Or no, y equals 3x minus 8.
Good. $22. We'll end it on 22. So we got two same squares here.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know that area. What's the area of the white square?
36.
What percentage is the shaded region of that white square?
1/4.
3/4.
3/4.
Right? It's missing this corner right here, which is 1/4. But it wants this area right here, so it needs 3/4 times 36, which is 27. Always remember, well, this is maybe the one problem that's not the case. Usually shaded area region, the area of shaded regions is a very common question you're going to get on the test. They are almost always subtraction problems. And this actually was a subtraction problem. You took the area of that, which was 36, and you subtracted off the area of that, which is 1/4 of 36, which is 9. So you do end up with 36 minus 9. You could look at it as a subtraction problem. You could also look at it as that whole area of that square is 36. We're looking at 3/4 of it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's see the calendar. You are scheduled for Friday at the library. Are we doing that online maybe?
I can change it to online, yeah, if you need me to.
I don't need you to. I can do it at the library. I'm going to leave it totally up to you.
Okay.
I don't know which you prefer or what you and your mom prefer in terms of payment. Online's a little cheaper, and I honestly don't think you lose anything at all. In fact, you might gain a little bit because I'm recording this. You'll get to review it.
Yeah, can we change it to online then?
Yeah. You want to make it at 3?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I just assumed since you had changed today's appointment to online that you were probably perfectly happy with online.
Yeah.
And you probably don't like to go out and drive anywhere any more than I do. So if something can be done online, I usually do it online. Oh, I misspelled your name. I bet you have the most misspelled name in history.
Yeah.
You've dealt with it your whole life, haven't you?
Yep.
And it's also, where did I get the M? It's not McAllister, it's Callister with 2 S's.
No, it's just one S. It's just Callister.
Okay. So I got it right here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in fact, I got 2 S's. It is only 1 S?
Yeah.
It's only 1 L? It's 2 L's, right?
Yes, it's 2 L's. Callister.
I meant to say L, not S, but
Oh.
yeah, okay. So I think I got it. It's spelled correct up there. I'll talk to you at 3 on Friday afternoon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Haley.